everybody, and welcome into the Casual Sports Podcast as we wrapped up Week 11 of the high school football season. A couple teams, Matt,
round one
postseason runs come to a close, but for quite a few, it's on to round two, and we're going to have some really great matchups coming up on the network this coming Friday. Make sure if you want to tune into those games, at $9.99 you get every game on the network. If you didn't catch it in week one because your team was at home, but now Brookfield fans, your team's going out to Dalton, hour and a half away. The great
opportunity. Debating on making the trip. Like I said, I'll go wherever they'll go, but man, like
Dalton's a little far. I understand.
That's by
Worcester. Yeah. But Matt, it was a really entertaining first half for most of our football games this past weekend. I mean, I think when you look back, a lot of the scores were blowouts, but I think some of the games we expected to be close were. I mean, Jefferson, Poland, Hubbard, Girard, those were two great games. Salem fought to the very end. I mean, we had some good fights, and I mean, we'll talk about United on tomorrow's show. But how about their performance? 62 points in an absolute shootout against a premier program for this level. I mean, it was a great performance for them on the road, no less, too.
Yes, it was. Like, whew.
Well, let's go ahead and get right into this. We'll start with a really good performance. Austintown Fitch took down Mayfield 56-27, picking up their 10th win of the season. Matt, this is a game you'll look at for Fitch. They just continue to play great football all the way here into the first round of the postseason. We'll talk about, how this carries over to their next game in a little bit. But, jumping out to a 14-0 lead at the end of the first quarter, they were able just to cement their presence early on. Even with Mayfield getting 2 touchdowns in that second quarter, Fitch was able to get 4, and really it was just everything the Mayfield Wildcats did, Austintown Fitch just did better. Every pass, it was longer. Every run was tougher. Everything was better.
It was awesome.
This Fitch team, and it was
came to play. They came to play. Mayfield, I mean, still put up 30-plus points. I mean, hats off to them. What? Yeah.
Almost 30-plus.
Almost 30. But what a game this was. I mean, what's his name? That Jamel James. Like, that's a running back right there. When you talk about high school football running backs, that's one of them right there.
He was play of the week.
Yeah. What was it? I think it was over 300 rushing yards.
That's crazy.
I don't know. I'm about to look it up right now. I know WKBN just did a story on it. So let's see. Yeah, it says 305 rushing yards, and he also had 6 touchdowns.
6 touchdowns. Man, what a performance that was for Jenkins. No wonder he made play of the week. I mean, when you have runs like that, it really just goes to show that this Fitch team, no matter the question marks they may have had here at the end of the season since the Madsland wash, I mean, I think there was a couple of question marks on just how deep this team could go as they finally met somebody I think they were on par with and lost to Washington. But I think they're set up now pretty good to go up against St. V next week. Team we've seen here on the network already.
Yeah, they beat Ursuline.
Well, they played Ursuline, and they beat Ursuline. So clearly this is a good team. This St. V, they also played Hoban, who's the number 1 team in the region, and they only lost by a touchdown. So I like this game as a real tune-up for Fitch to kind of go into what should be a really hard 2 rounds, because if you look at where they stand, Matt, if you beat St. V this week, then you have to take on the number 1 team in Hoban. Then if you do that, then you might have to take on Riverside or Hudson. Riverside's 10-1. They beat Lakeside 63-6 in the first round. Hudson shut out Solon 31-0. Not to mention Walsh Jesuit is back there, and they won 56-20 over Maple Heights. I mean, there are some really, really good teams in there. Fitch is one of them. But, I mean, you talk about the road to the state championship being a hard one. In reality, I think you look at whoever comes out of Region 5 and Division might end up as state champions. These are just the powerhouse names.
Archbishop Hoban is the storybook of high school football. Right. I can't remember the last time they were bad. They're always they're always good. Oh, it's disgusting too how good they are. It is. That's the proper word for it too. Fish is going to have their hands full, but focus on this week. St. Vincent, St. Mary, tough team. It's a 4 seed against a 5 seed, so it's going to be one of the best games on the network.
And isn't it crazy that these two are 4 and 5? I mean, when you look at how good they've been and the schedules they've put together,
that tells you how good those teams are above them.
Yeah, it really tells you how good Hoban, Hudson, Riverside, how good those teams are to have a strength of schedule that is better than Fitch to even give them that ability to be higher. But, coming off this first round win, I think takeaways for Fitch against these next two opponents, St. V and Hoban. I mean, obviously you have to get past St. V first, and Hoban has to beat Barberton, which is never going to be an easy task. But
even though they're an 8 seed.
Yeah.
They are an 8 seed, but
my grandmother's alma mater is not going down without a fight. The Magics of Barberton. They have some pretty good fried chicken over there.
I know. I've had it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Long time ago, but I've had it.
I was missing some Barberton fried chicken just the other night. I need to go back home so I can get some. But, these next couple of weeks for Fitch, if they're going to make this run, I think the one takeaway I have of this team this season is as good as the offense has been, the defense hasn't quite played to the same level. And I know the strength of schedule is obviously a big factor in that. But now I think you kind of look back at this whole season and, a defense that allows 23 points a game isn't exactly, I think, what they want to see at this point in the season. When you go up against teams like St. V and Hoban, who are pretty good at scoring. If you didn't know, St. V averages 30 points a game on the offensive side. Obviously, Fitch averages a lot more. I mean, they're up there over 44 points a game. But I think that this defense is going to have a lot of struggles against teams like St. V and against Hoban, because those two teams are built around their defenses. And I think Fitch will obviously have an advantage because of how good their offense is, but all it's going to take is one night where this offense has an off night. They have 1 or 2 bad plays that end up in a pick six, a fumble that turns momentum, a 3 and out early in the game that stalls them out early on. And it's going to allow a team like St. V, who's a slow, grind you out kind of football team, to really take advantage of that game. And against Fitch's defense that has really seen everything this season, and it has been going to war in trenches. I mean, I don't think there's any way to go around that. They have gone to war, but I think you saw it when they played Massillon, Washington. A little bit of an offensive hiccup here and there, and it was just enough for Massillon, Washington to get in there and pull away. And that's something that Fitch is going to have to avoid in the rest of the season.
They figured out new things in that game. Like, that was a test against the best right there. And, I mean, they didn't play that bad, but, I mean, they figured out what they needed to do against teams like that. And, I mean, teams like that are going to be Archbishop Hogan.
So. Right, and obviously they put it into work against Wadsworth going into, 4 overtimes. But, again, they had to make a comeback in that game because the offense was slow to get going. They only had 21 points in the first 4 quarters. They didn't score in the first. They only had a touchdown going into halftime. They were trailing this whole time until the 4th quarter. They got the touchdown. Then you go to overtime, and it's a back-and-forth brawl for 4 overtimes. Defense gets 2 stops, allows 2 scores. But I don't think you want to go to overtime against teams like St. V or Hoban. You don't want to be playing from behind against those caliber of opponents. It's not going to bode well. It's going to end up in similar fashion to what happened against Massillon, Washington. That was a close game at halftime, one score in favor of Washington. Third quarter, Fitch can't get that offense going. Look at their biggest games, Massillon, Washington, and Wadsworth. The offense has not gotten going early. And with the struggles the defense has had this year, it has allowed teams to just grab momentum early. The deeper this team goes in the postseason, the more exposed this defense is going to get. And for Mayfield to go in here into Fitch to put up 27 in the first week. I mean, Harding last week got 28. Harding hasn't had an offense this season. There's clearly a deficiency with Fitch's defense. And I do think at some point it is going to limit how far this team can go if they don't make proper adjustments going into this matchup against St. V, which I expect to be a more low-scoring game than 56-27 because a really good defense lays on the other side. And St. V doesn't quite have the offense, but they are a slow, burn-you kind of team.
That they are.
All right, our next game over in the NE8. So I was wrong about which way this one went. Hubbard did not take down Girard. I was a little surprised by it, but I believe I heard early on that Girard had a couple of players back in which they did. I'm looking at it now. So Stephen Sims was back in this game. He led them to victory last time against Hubbard with an epic performance. Wasn't quite as great this time around. Him and Talone split the quarterback duties in this game. Talone actually played really well, 106 yards on just 3 completions for him. But it was, again, Sims on the ground, 21 carries for 187 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns that propelled them to victory alongside Bengala's touchdown reception, Anthony Bengala, the younger brother of the injured quarterback, Nick Bengala. And then Connor Strain had a touchdown as well in this game. So, not quite what I expected in this one. I'm glad to see Girard
away with it.
Right. I'm glad to see Girard win because we know they are a really good team and they should have beat Hubbard. But I was worried about all the injuries they had going into this Week 11 matchup that I thought was really going to dampen their abilities. But give credit, Girard's defense came to play when it mattered. I think that was a question I had late in the season. I mean, the last 2 opponents, they allowed 75 points to in Struthers and Niles. And that was just not Girard football in the final 2 weeks of the season. Coming back here and you only allow 20. Now that's a lot better. That's more like it for Girard. That defense needs to take another step if they're going to make a big run. But I like where they're sitting right now, gaining some momentum back.
Yes, absolutely. And, they read after that close game against Niles, like you beat Niles by 2. And, a lot of people had a lot of speculation going into this game. And, they adjusted well and they won by 10. Next week is going to be the test, though, because they got to go play Jefferson. So
that's a good offense, and it should spread out Girard's defense and really test them, much like I think how Struthers has the ability to stretch you out with their play action game. Yeah. Gerard's going to face something similar. For Hubbard, though, don't leave him hanging here. They put in a good game of their own. I mean, Nicholas Hendricks game, 2 touchdowns, 221 yards, a QB rating of 118.2. It was good for him. Ben Wilcox on the ground putting a good final performance as well, 111 yards and a touchdown. Levante Daniels, leading wide receiver for him, got a touchdown, 87 yards on 4 receptions. I mean, it was a good game for Hubbard, but ultimately the points just didn't come when they needed them. And when you're in this kind of game, you just kind of have to hope chips fall your way at the very end. They couldn't quite keep up with Sims on the ground, and I think that's ultimately what cost him. If they had taken away Girard's running ability in this game, even the slightest, I think Hubbard would have come out with the win in this game. But ultimately, a down season, sure, for them.
Yeah.
But I think we all kind of knew they were going to take at least a little bit of a step back, losing their talented superstar to Ohio State. You don't just replace a talent like that. It's going to be a very young team next year, but that doesn't mean I think anyone expects this group to take a step back on how they play and the level of which they play. I mean, they're going to return a couple of really talented young players. I mean, Garland Warren is coming back, and he had over 300 yards on the ground this season. So, maybe a guy you look for next season to kind of take that step above. Daniels is going to come back. Colley's coming back. They are losing a ton of seniors. This was a very experienced team, and obviously this isn't where they wanted their season to end. But, anytime you make the postseason, to me, that's a victory. I know it's not necessarily what they wanted this season to be. You always want the big run. You want to go to regionals at the very least. They don't get there. But I thought all in all, with how competitive this conference was, they were at the forefront of conversations all season long. Maybe a little retooling. We'll see how the young guys play next year. But I like Hubbard in kind of the direction they're heading. I mean, they're going to be a tough, gritty team, right, for years to come with, the young guys that did step up during this season that are going to take the lead next year. Yeah.
It should be interesting, though. But this next game is going to be sick. Girard Jefferson. So that's going to be something. Hopefully we can see Bengala come back because they definitely need him.
The season.
I think so. But
I believe when I'm talking
they work around it. This happened to them last year. Like, I always feel so bad for Girard. They always get the short end of the stick where they're doing well and then something happens and that's it. There's nothing you can do about it. And it frustrates me very heavily.
Well, yeah, especially, they're such a high seed. They're expected to go far, but injuries are definitely going to limit their ability to do so. And you do feel for it a bit. You're like, man. At the same time, though, Matt, what do we always say? Next man up. You have to be ready to go. And if you're not ready to go and you don't have guys that are able to step up and play well, kind of, I don't want to say shame on the coaches, but I think at some point, the fact that this has happened multiple times to this program, I think it's a point they need to look at going into the offseason. Hey, we need to expect an injury. And I think they did that well. You look at Talone and Sims going into next year. They're both sophomores at the moment. They're going to be juniors next season. So you have a 2-quarterback tandem that is just absolutely phenomenal that you're going to be able to ride the next 2 years. So even if one goes down, the other is going to be able to step up and play. So I think Girard's going to be just fine. And this is a valuable playoff experience for this group. Obviously, they can still make a run. They have a good defense. It's shown some sign of improvements against Hubbard. It's going to have to step up against Jefferson, a team we know that can score. They didn't this week. We'll talk about that game in a second. We'll talk about
we'll
talk about the Jefferson-Girard matchup a couple games from now as we continue to break down. We got Jefferson still left for their matchup, so we'll talk about the matchup against Girard when we get there. But kind of breaking this down for Girard, as always, Matt, winning with defense is what they're going to have to do. This is a team that we've looked at really every year. Defense wins championships. That's what Girard is built around. They're going to play Girard football. No one's going to force them out of it. And, win or lose, they're going to play true to them. And truthfully, it comes down to this defense and whether or not Stephen Sims can stay healthy. He is the X factor of this offense.
Yes, absolutely.
He missed a game and a half at the end of the year and almost cost him, but he's back to the postseason. So hopefully they can get something going behind him. Next team up, Garfield. Matt, great performance for this group. We were expecting a close game against Conneaut, who was 8-2. Garfield 8-2 as well, but no. Garfield, they came in, they put in a great performance. They win 48-21. They got 2 sacks from Deacon Sommer and Keegan Sell. Brendan Bogucci got an interception as well. It was a really good game for him. And this was a perfect way to start out the postseason. If you're Garfield, you needed this kind of win because you do look up at what's coming next, and it's South Range. And we know Garfield is a real monster of their own. This is going to be a monumental game coming up to really, I think, show this entire region what Garfield actually is, because I think, playing in the MVAC, they run over a lot of teams, but a lot of those teams are D6 and D7, and you never really get to see what this Garfield squad is against the likes of a D5 opponent. And now here in the postseason, their first matchup against Conneaut, they run them over. I mean, they beat Liberty.
Conneaut was a good team too. So
they beat, Liberty, a Division 5 team in the final week of the season. So now back-to-back games against D5. They put up they're averaging 53 points between the 2 games, and they're only allowing 24. So, it's definitely the path they want to be on. South Range is going to be an absolute monster, but I'm not counting Garfield out of that game. I think that they are dynamic enough to maybe keep that thing close. And if you can keep it close, you give yourself a chance. And anytime you have a chance in high school football, any given Friday, man, you can take that game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But Garfield's been a sneaky team. Not a lot of people have looked at them. They expected them to be down because the departure of Anthony Dema, and they really haven't lost a beat, Alec. They haven't.
Their offense might have gotten
people
better.
Haven't realized it, including me. I mean, 2 losses on the year. I mean, Brookfield really took it to them. And, I mean, they only lost by 1 to JFK.
You and I might have been celebrating that a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean, Brookfield came in and gave it to them. That was their only blowout loss. I mean, they only lost one other game.
1 point.
I mean, Brookfield's on a mission this year. But I mean, Garfield coming in here against Konya and taking it to them, like they're gonna ride that momentum against South Range, and you still got that bell back there. I'm sure. I mean, I'd be ringing it a little bit. You might see an upset. We might see it. Nobody expects
they're going to lean on Jesse Grace.
Nobody expects it. It's all South Range. South Range, is the favorite.
Matt, it's hard to pick against South Range at this point.
It is. And it's so hard to pick against them. That's why it's so right to pick against them for the upset. I don't know. I like this. I almost called it last week. Alliance really brought it to Cheney.
That was close.
Cheney came back. Cheney. We'll talk. I'm sure we'll talk about it in a second. But Garfield, I mean, look out! I mean, if you get past South Range, as this is still loading
if they get past the range, it's either Cardinal Mooney or Norwayne. So I mean, this regional semifinal is going to be powerhouse football.
Mooney against Norwayne.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll be talking about that matchup with Mike tomorrow on the show as we get into Mooney, but. I mean, yeah, that's going to be something else. I mean, talk about power football meeting power football at its finest.
Oh, yeah.
But, Matt, if Garfield's going to come out with a win this weekend, it's going to come on the ground game. And we haven't seen many teams be successful on the ground against South Range. It's going to be a true test for them. I'm very intrigued to see what they can do with that matchup. And I think it's a real measuring stick for Garfield to gauge where they were this season and where we think they can be next year, because they were eliminated by Kirtland in mid-November football last year, 25-7. They made it to the 3rd round last time. They were really good. They were a high-seeded team, and they had to go up against one of the best, and they lost in the 25-7 game. And I believe we were on that call. And
what was it?
That game, Kirtland Garfield.
Oh, yeah. Last year, we were there. Oh, yeah. That was in Perry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were on that call.
Yeah, I thought so. But, that was a game you looked at for them, and it was that physical, low-scoring kind of football. And I think it's almost something we expect to see again. The only difference is South Range can also stretch you out a lot more than Kirtland could last year. And I think that's kind of going to be the X factor for this game. They really have only had to go up against 2 passing attacks this season, JFK and Brookfield. And Brookfield really is a premier passing attack. JFK is, they're a good balanced team. I don't think I would give them the elite card that I think Brookfield's passing department has. I mean, they have a 3-star wide receiver. Not many other teams in the region can boast that they have a receiver within the top 100 in the state of Ohio, and Brookfield does. And I think that's a real testament to that passing game that they've developed over there. The fact that they run the ball 30 times a game and they can still have wide receivers of Isaiah Jones caliber in that group. And we saw Garfield against the passing attack. They definitely had problems. And I think that's going to reopen up this weekend against South Range. I'm not going against that upset that you're talking about here, Matt, because I definitely think it's a possibility. But Garfield's going to have to figure something out when it comes to stopping the pass, because this group over here in South Range, I mean, there's no small reason why DJ has been yelling Raider all season long. I mean, there is a really good program down in Canfield. There's 2 of them, actually.
Yeah.
Next team up, the team that beat this Garfield crew by 1 point earlier in the season, JFK. come off a first round win, 37-9 over Fairport Harding. You know, it's obviously a good game, I mean, for the defensive side, but I almost expected more out of JFK's offense, right? I mean, you look at the last 2 weeks, and they absolutely put the hurt on Ravenna and Cleveland Central Catholic. I mean, 94 points to just 8 in that game, and Harding gets 9, which I know isn't that much more, but it's more points than JFK's allowed in their last 3 games that they've played. A shutout to Rootstown, a shutout to Ravenna, and an 8-point score for Cleveland Central Catholic. Harding gets 9. The offense has its lowest scoring game in 3 games. You know, it's a matchup for JFK. I think this was an opportunity for them to come out and kind of make that first statement, that intimidation game over the rest of D7, because I think a lot of teams looked at JFK and they go, all right, that's the measuring stick. We got to play like them. And, you know, honestly, to me, I think Springfield, who we'll talk about on tomorrow's show, I think Springfield had a better opening round. They beat Vienna Matthews 42-0. And I mean, you look down and you see Southern, they won 65-21. St. Paul won 64-20. Lowellville won 54-14. You just go down this list and it's big score, big score, big score. And you see JFK and it's you know, it's fine, 37-9, but I don't think it's the margin of victory we expected out of a team that has shown excellent offense and capability this season. And, you know, this is just nitpicking a really good football performance by them. But I thought this was a real opportunity to kind of come out and make that statement like, hey, you have to go through us if you want to go anywhere. And I don't think they quite did that in round 1. And I think Springfield's going to come in hungry next this coming Friday. And I think Springfield has as good a chance as any to pull off that win on the road.
Yes, I mean,
Warren played in Liberty, by the way, too.
Yeah.
Good game.
I don't have too much.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned after the last 2 performances that round 1 of the postseason against the team that is mediocre at best in Fairport Harding was able to stick around, or not stick around. They were able to stall out JFK enough to not allow them to hit 40. I mean, if you're a top seed, you have to hit 40 in the first round. That's just common sense if you're me, but they're not me. So what do I know? Next game at Canfield, and kind of along the same lines, they struggled a lot more than I think just about everybody thought they should have against the New Philadelphia Quakers. It was 14-10 at halftime. It was 14-10 after the third quarter, and finally Canfield pulled away in the fourth, outscoring New Philly 13-0. But, I mean, you talk about a first-round matchup that had those Cardinal fans kind of holding their fingers tight, like, come on, we got to pull this out. I don't think it was quite the start to the postseason everyone was hoping for. And now you have a really good Aurora football team coming in that's more physical than the New Philly Quakers. I definitely think, I mean, Canfield, they are going to have to figure something out on how to retool this team and get them ready to go next week, which I'm sure they will. They have great coaching down there, and their defense still only allowed 10 points. But they have to make sure that offense doesn't stall out early in the games. I mean, it's kind of the storyline we've talked everywhere so far, and especially with Fitch. You cannot start slow when you're playing these high-level teams. I mean, this Region 9 is really good, whether it's Chardon or Geneva, who is a 9 seed. I mean,
I'd be afraid. That's who Chardon plays, Geneva. That's going to be one heck of a battle.
Yeah, right?
Oh, my God.
I heard a lot of talk this past weekend while I was at the game down in Boardman, in Trinity, that we're going to talk about a little later on, that a lot of people feel whoever comes out of Region 9 might have the best shot at a state championship this season. So, I mean, if Canfield wants to be that team, obviously they've shown during the regular season they can be, but you're going to have some tough opponents to get there. I mean, Aurora this week, Ursuline or Talmadge the week after, and then you have Chardon, Geneva, or Cheney likely in a regional championship game. This road is rough for them, and they cannot afford to have another game like the one they played against New Philly if they want to be in that discussion for a state title. We know they have the talented weapons on this offense. I mean, Brock Lowry, one of the top recruits in the state of Ohio. I mean, and he's surrounded by talent. It's not just him. There's a lot of talent to go around, and Richie's done a great job covering this team and talking about them on Power Hour. And from all the stuff he said, this was definitely not the performance anybody expected in round 1 of a 2 versus 15. Now keep that in mind. Canfield's a 2 and a 15 seed kept this a lot closer than they should have.
You get a lot of teams in there in that first round. They know they're playing a tough team, and they throw everything at them. And, it looks good for a while, but, I mean, the huge difference is
Canfield always wins out. Isn't that the old saying?
Yeah, Canfield is more in-depth. Like, they don't get – I mean, look at this team. They probably were exhausted by the end of this game because they were going 100% the whole time, and it catches up with you.
Matt, I think we can say Canfield played Steelers football. They played down to their opponent. They did not play at their level.
Well, recent years of Steelers football, not this year.
Not this year. But I'll just say, recent years, they played down to their opponent's level. It's kind of been the calling card of your team there, Matt. And I think that was Canfield's first round. They can't afford that again going up against the opponents that they're going to see.
They knew they had enough to beat them, but they didn't want to showcase everything they had in the first round. I mean, a lot of teams did that, because a lot of teams are coming in and watching you too. I mean, I saw a couple people that looked at a place at the Brookfield game. Like,
you're saying there were some
Dalton scouts? What are they doing there?
I don't know. Scouts from an hour and a half away.
I think I don't know.
That's a long way for a scout to go, especially when they get footage from the teams.
I know. We'll see.
We'll
Maybe
see.
I want to see it in person.
All right.
I've seen it before. Seen it before.
Scouting's not all that uncommon. I don't know what the rules are on it. So maybe we should go any further into it. The basketball, definitely. They're normally in the same arena, so they just stick around because they go back to back.
Oh, no.
But next game up here, Matt, Jefferson, Poland, and Jefferson, man, you talk about grit these last couple of weeks. I mean, they just keep holding on.
That's another example.
Yeah,
Poland I mean, 11 seed, they have nothing to lose. Let's throw everything at them, And
the real thing for Poland as well, they had such a great run near the end of the season. Jefferson kind of knocked them down a peg, 27-13. Struthers got them. And then you had a rematch against Jefferson kind of in the midst of this losing skid where their offense had been struggling. And again, they get 13 points. Their defense plays much better, but it just wasn't enough to get over that hump. And look at the momentum they had going at the end of the season. I mean, win over Niles, Girard, and Lakeview in 3 straight weeks. They beat Hubbard. They beat Louisville at the beginning of the season. They didn't really have bad losses, and I still don't think this was a bad loss. I mean, the only bad loss I will say was 48-0 to South Range. That's just, that's South Range. So can it really be all that bad? I think that this Poland team, very talented. Obviously, I think they showcased that here against Jefferson. And, Matt, I know you want to kind of talk about this matchup, Jefferson-Girard next week.
Yes.
2 struggling offenses with 2 really good defenses, I think is kind of the storyline we're going to have going into this because, while Jefferson sure has had their bad games on, the offensive side, I think this defense has been about as good as advertised all season long. I mean, what you're going to get week to week. 1-2 touchdowns out of this group. And, I mean, the teams that have gotten on them were able to expose the defense. Struthers and South Range each put up 42, but those are really the 2 exceptions. The only other team to score more than that was Grand Valley in week 1 when Jefferson put up 66 of their own. Girard had 21, and those are the only times the team has gotten over 14 points against Jefferson. So, I mean, you're going to see a great defensive clash, and I think it's just whatever offense is going to find that hole somewhere that gets one big play to finally open that game up is going to take. And I mean, I would not be surprised if that game ends very similar to this one against Poland, 14-13, 14-7. I don't expect it to be a shootout with how good those 2 defenses are going to be. It should be a very competitive matchup, I'll tell you that. And I could not tell you at the moment who I think will win that game. I think it's going to come down to whoever has the ball last, maybe. And I guess whoever's defense is on the field last get a pick 6 to win it.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel more confident with Gerard coming in here than
experience.
Yeah,
that experience that Gerard has. I mean, they have seen the best of the best, and they've beaten the best of the best too.
Oh yeah. All right.
Next group, Matt. It's the team, the War Eagles, Valley Christian, and I was at this game, and this was my game to call. And I'm down there on the field before the game. I'm talking to all the Valley Christian staff members. I mean, I think I did a full lap of everybody. I got there before they did. I watched Andy Haight carry all the equipment into the stadium from up in the press box, and I go down there. I'm talking to everybody, and as soon as the players hit the field, I mean, you could tell that there is a certain confidence around them, but definitely a cockiness that early on in their warm-ups, Andy Hake got on them about. I mean, he was not taking anything lightly in this game, and I love to see it. And just one thing that really stood out from what he told me before this game, if we are going to beat teams like Kirtland, we cannot afford to go in here and just win the game. We have to be great. We have to look dominant. And I think they did just that. 53-0, they won this game. And it wasn't just, 53 gimme points. First play from scrimmage is a 75-yard rushing touchdown from Phillips Bradley. A couple plays later, he goes it from 35 yards out and gets a rushing touchdown again. I mean, their first 6 plays, I think they had 3 touchdowns in this game. I mean, it was right out the gate. Their defense allowed a singular first down, and the first down came when they put the JV squad in the second half, and they still only allowed 1 first down to this offensive trinity, who ultimately I don't think came 100% ready to go. Their equipment trunk got lost on the way, so they didn't even take the field until about 38 minutes before the game. Valley Christian was out there for an hour and a half. Trinity was out there for 35 minutes. They didn't have any of their equipment. So I think that definitely impacted that game. But, Valley Christian did exactly what everyone expected them to do. Go out there and dominate. And I think they did send the message that we are here. We can compete with the likes of those programs. And a program in Trinity that ultimately, isn't the best. They haven't had the best all-time record. But when they have good seasons, they are typically really good seasons. Valley Christian shut that down here in the opening round, and it was an all-around performance. And, talking to those coaches, there's just a feeling that I haven't really felt. I mean, Matt, you and I have covered Brookfield in the past couple of postseasons.
Yeah,
it's down there on the field every time. You go down there, there's level of confidence, sure, but there's also this kind of like, all right, is this team really ready? There's always that question mark floating around. I did not feel that on the field here with Valley Christian. I think I even felt it, when we played called Garfield in the postseason, Gerard in the postseason. There's always this question mark floating around. I know it's round 1, but I did not feel that from Valley Christian. And it was a great performance from them. And this is a team, truthfully, they are gearing up to go against the best of the best. And I can't wait for this weekend's matchup. Cuyahoga High, team that beat them in the postseason last year, the opening round. But I also want to give out a couple other numbers from this game for Valley. First 10-win season in a decade. First playoff win in a decade. Third most points ever scored in a game for Valley Christian as a program. And now their second longest postseason run in school history. So this is a historic program, historic season for this short-lived program. I mean, they haven't even been around 20 years. And, we're talking about them right now as a state contender. I think that is a testament to the school, these players, and of course, these coaches at the end of the day as well for getting this group ready to go and keeping them focused. But everyone on this team played to the level we knew they could. And that was the difference maker of this game. Jontrell Mixon broke off about every tackle. I don't think he actually went down to the ground unless he dove into the end zone. Jashawn Lindsay was out there. I mean, he almost literally broke someone's ankle because he dropped him to the ground so hard on a juke move. It was honestly great. I think he ended that on a touchdown too. Coming down from like the 20, sees this guy at the 10, gives a little stutter, and this dude just completely falls down the other way. It was a great move by Lindsay to get in, but it was a great performance. And the only thing that I think can stop Valley Christian, one, is themselves, two, their special teams game, because they cannot kick a field goal to save their life. It's just not a part of their game. They do not have
a lot of teams that can't kick. I mean, we go in PA are the only team I can think of. I mean, Farrell's a high caliber team, and they can't kick. That's why they lost to Ursuline, because they couldn't kick a field goal.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of the biggest thing. If Valley gets to one of those close games, it's touchdown or bust on every drive. There is no getting a field goal for them. So, I mean, I think if anything is going to stop them when they get one of those close games where they need a field goal, I don't think that they're going to be able to get it. I mean, that was kind of the situation last year. Cuyahoga Heights, it was 16-13. All they needed was a field goal to send it to overtime, but they had to push for a touchdown because field goal kicking was not an option.
No. So, and they've gotten better at that, though.
They have. Jontrell Mixon has improved drastically. Jordan Pete's helping out in the kicking game when they need him to as well. They've kind of gone back and forth throughout this back half of the season, getting Pete some reps there as well. But another problem is that offensive line on special teams has allowed a lot of blocks. And I think that's part of the reason why they struggle so much is I think, their kickers are having to kind of speed up their motions. And they're not true kickers. I mean, Pete's a quarterback, wide receiver, running back, linebacker, safety, whatever you want him to play. And Jontrell Mixon is every other position. He's not a natural kicker. So, for them to have to speed up their process, I think it gets their alignment off. And when they slow it down, the defense of the opposing special teams is getting back there to block those kicks. And that's kind of the one thing I worry about for this team moving forward. You get into one of those games against Mogador or Cuyahoga Heights this weekend or Kirtland or Dalton or Brookfield, whoever it may be, even Canton Central Catholic, and you need you need a touchdown instead of a field goal, it could come back to bite you against some of these really, really talented teams. I hope it doesn't. You and I both hope it doesn't. We want to see this team run all the way. And I've certainly been screaming War Eagle alongside Andy Hake this season. I mean, I was up in the press box getting my stuff set up with the window open, and he's just yelling up to the press box.
He's always yelling. He's always yelling.
He saw me up there, and he just went, War Eagle, baby! And I was like, there we go. He's ready. He was ready to go.
Oh, yeah. But
very exciting.
It's going to be something.
Yeah. Next group up, Lowellville. Perfect start, 54-14. Everyone had been doubting how this offense would perform. Vinny Balone silenced the haters. 13 of 15 for 7 touchdowns on 319 yards. Mr. Balone, how do you do? Because that is just pristine passing from Mr. VB. And it's just great performance after great performance for this kid. And everyone doubted what this team was doing in the end of the season. They went, oh, he's taking a step back, only 2-3 touchdowns a game. First game here in the postseason, he goes, oh no, we were just resting up a little bit. We didn't need to go all out against the likes of, Sebring, McDonald, Western Reserve. Even the Raiders, they didn't need to show off the offense because they had a postseason spot locked up. They destroyed Steubenville Central Catholic, and now they're going to get an opportunity against Lucas, who traditionally has been a pretty good team. They're having a bit of a down year this time around, but they upset Toronto, a 7 seed, as a 10 in the first round, 35-26. It's a good team. It's going to be one to watch out for sure, but I will never be the one to doubt Lowellville this season. I have been on the Rockets wagon all season long, and I've been yelling it. Rockets to the moon, baby. This team can go as far as Vinny Balone can take them. He is, in my opinion, the best quarterback I have.
He's got to be 100%, though, which he has been. He's got to be 100%, which he has been. But, I mean, he's got to be top-notch. Going at Lucas, it's a 10 seed. But, look, they upset 7 seed, like you said, and then you get past them. It's most likely going to be Danville. And Danville, the 3 seed, is one heck of a team.
I wouldn't count out Hillsdale either. They
don't count Hillsdale either. 62 points. So it's gonna be tough. We're gonna see the true Vinny Balone in these next couple weeks. We really are.
Don't worry, he's gonna show up.
He'll show up. He'll be all right.
I just think it's crazy. The story this kid has had. He didn't start playing football. He didn't start playing quarterback until high school.
Yeah.
And now going from that to one of the all-time leaders in touchdowns for the state of Ohio.
Some people just have the knack to be quarterback. He's tall and he got an arm.
Yeah, he's got a bit of an arm, but it's just
a little bit. I mean, it's not that
he's
big.
got pinpoint accuracy. That's the one thing I noticed when I called him for 9 touchdowns. There wasn't a pass that he missed. He was never behind his guys, and that's a testament to how good those wide receivers are too. But he never missed, and his boys were right there. They never dropped it. And I think the biggest thing, the way he throws the football, while sometimes he throws it maybe an ill-advised pass here and there, the defense just isn't able to catch it. I mean, he's had multiple games where there should have been interceptions, but the opponent drops it. He puts so much heat on that ball that only his guys can catch it. And I don't think defensive backs really feel how hard that ball comes in until they go to try and catch it. And every time it slips through their fingers. I think that's what's made him such a talented quarterback. He's become impossible to pick off through 11 games. You just can't get your hands on the ball. And again, a testament to the wide receivers and how much work they put in as a group to be able to allow Malone to throw the ball that hard into traffic that only they can come down with it, because only they understand the way he's throwing that football.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next one up, this was a phenomenal game. And we talk about great first-round starts. Ursuline over Hawken, 43-12. I did not expect this level of domination. I knew Ursuline was good. No doubts there on whether or not they were a good team. But to see a team like Hawken that was only 8-2 coming into this get dominated the way they did. That was an offense that scored over 400 points through the regular season and, had averaged over 40 points. I mean, I'm looking at the schedule. They only scored under 35 twice on the entire season up until that game against Ursuline. I mean, talk about exposure for, Ursuline. I mean, taking down a team that had been so good all season long, and the way that they did it, great performance from them. It's kind of exactly what you were expecting to see out of this Ursuline crew. They needed that dominant victory here in round one. They were the 3 seed instead of the top seed, like I think they all kind of wanted. I mean, you really couldn't have asked for a better year out of them. And they were leading 28-6 at the half. They only allowed a touchdown in the second half. And reports from that game said there was at least 1,000 fans in attendance filling up Stambaugh Stadium.
I believe it.
Yeah, I believe it too, with how much this team pulls in crowds. It was a really great showing for them, and it's going to be an even bigger game next week against Talmadge, who won their first game against Villa Angela St. Joseph, a team Ursuline saw earlier this year, 21-7. St. Joseph lost 40-0 to Ursuline, so it sets up a pretty good matchup going into this coming week. I mean, Ursuline is on a really great path right now, considering losses, St. V and Fitch, they are in perfect position.
Talmadge is going to come. Talmadge is going to come to play. 21-7 victory over that via Angela St. Joseph. Didn't they beat Ursuline?
No, Ursuline.
No. Let me look. I gotta check.
It was 40-0.
Where is it? Okay, that's right. Yeah, I see it. But I mean, Ursuline coming in. I mean, Talmadge definitely had a game, a down game against this team that Ursuline blew out. 3 weeks ago? So,
Matt, as you said, playoffs, those lower seeded teams, they go 110% trying to pull that upset.
That is true.
So keep that in mind. Playoff teams are a whole different animal than regular season, especially with teams that already had playoff spots locked up. There wasn't necessarily a need to go 100% at the end of the year for some of those teams that knew they were kind of not in a position to make that top 4, but just needed to get that top 8. You could take a loss and not really have to go full steam. But, I look back, for this Talmadge matchup, I know there really isn't a ton of great games on this schedule, but they beat my alma mater 63-28. I should probably text my cousin this week and see, hey, what do you know about Talmadge? You had to play them because he's on my high school's football team. But, 63-28 over my alma mater. They beat Barberton, who's a playoff team that we're talking about, potentially could upset Hoban this weekend, and they won that game 20-14. This is a Talmadge team that can both win close games and can win big scoring games. I mean, they are a true animal all the way around, but strength of schedule definitely is going to lean towards Ursuline. More experience, better teams on that resume. And I think it's going to be one heck of a matchup between these two. I'm looking forward to seeing that one and seeing the outcome of it.
Me too.
So our final 3 games were all 3 teams that went down here in this final week of their seasons. As Salem fell to Canton South 21-28. They lose their last 2 games of the season. But Matt, all in all, I don't think that this was a season for Salem that you really have to look down on. They fought to the very end. I mean, it was 21-0 at the half, and they were able to come back and make this a 21-21 game before, Canton South pulled away and got that final touchdown, making it, 28-21 to finish this thing out. But I think you look Salem this year, they were competitive. And every week, you looked at them as a team that could honestly go in there and beat anybody. And I think to have that kind of potent attack and that recognition around this valley in such a competitive, region that they played in. This Northeastern Buckeye was no pushover conference either, with West Branch, Alliance, Carrollton, and obviously Salem. Those top 4 teams were all really good. They had good performances. Maybe a couple you went back would have given you a higher seed. You wouldn't have had to take on a really good Canton South in this first round. But I think valuable experience this year for this Salem team. And much like we saw with Hubbard, it's not a team that I expect to stay down for very long. A 6-5 year this time around, I expect them to have a winning record again next season and come back looking to play. And really, I think the big part of it is they just have to play better at home next year, and that's got to be the one thing that they look to fix going into this offseason.
Yes, I agree.
Jackson Milton, a team that I think everyone knows I've had my criticisms of this year. I've also liked them a little bit. To me, they are an average team, and I won't say who, but I had a pretty knowledgeable football person in the region agree with me on my statements of Jackson Milton is average, and it is okay to be average. Average gets you a winning record most of the time with the schedules here in the MVAC. But you went up against a great team in Dalton, and you lost, and that's just kind of been the way Jackson Milton has played. You win the games you're supposed to, you lose the games you're supposed to, and they've had a win-loss trend the last 8 weeks now, and I look at Jackson Milton. It was a fine year. They have some really talented players. I'm going to see who's going to be back, but I mean, they're going to get Stank back, who is really great on the offensive side. Obviously going to lose Schiavi, and that's your big weapon out there. I mean, second leading in rushing, leader in passing, your kicker who can drill it from 40 plus yards out, maybe 50 on a good night for him. But I think all in all that this was a team you looked at this season, Jackson Milton. They played about as good as I think anyone could have expected. I mean, you tell this team early in the year, hey, you finish 7-4, you make the postseason. I think most teams are going to take that outcome, especially considering the fact they finished 4th in conference play. You really look at them and you go, you should not have been there. And maybe you look at the result and you go, yeah, maybe that was probably right. But to still get there and to make it after, obvious struggles in your conference, they were able to do enough. Play good enough. I mean, you talk 4 shutouts on the entire year for Jackson Milton. That's great. 4 shutouts is something you don't see out of very many teams, even with the same schedule. You don't see 4 shutouts. They played really good against bad teams. Unfortunately, they just couldn't keep that up against teams that were really good as well.
Yeah, I mean, Jackson Milton, I mean, Dalton's one heck of a team to go up against. Obviously, I mean, I might be seeing them this week. But, I mean, Jackson, they had a tough battle year. I mean, just to get in was, sentimental, I feel, for them. But that's all I got.
That's all you got, and that's okay. Next group up, Wyndham. Had a 4-5 year. Honestly, Matt, I thought this year was fine for the Bombers. I mean,
yeah,
maybe a team a little below average, but they got into the postseason. I mean,
they got there.
Any time you finish with a losing record, you get to the postseason, I think you're just kind of glad to even be there. You obviously understand the circumstances you're going to face going up against a high-seeded team with the losing record. I mean, I think they understood that was not a game they were going to win. Kind of just a happy to be there kind of thing. And you look at them. We'll see what they can do next year. I really know nothing about this group, football-wise. I like the name, honestly, is the biggest reason why I've liked them and why I've picked them most of the time, because I think the Bombers is just dope. I mean, how many other teams are the Bombers? None.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost to a really great Danville team. It was the outcome that was expected of this game. I think simple as that. The outcome, expectations met the outcome. And you just look at it and go, all right, yeah, fine. Good season. You made the postseason. That really, for a team like Wyndham, after the struggles they had early on, it was just fight to get to the postseason. And they did that. So I think they did exactly what they needed to. All right. Well, Matt, we'll hand this out here. This week's Beast of the Week.
Oh, man. Christian Davis. Brookfield Warriors. 3. I talked to him before the game. I'm like, how many touchdowns today, Christian? And he held up, 2. I'm going to get 2 today. He got 3. And one of them was a 66-yard touchdown. Oh, my gosh. And, to complement their offensive line, too, Braden Litz, Connor Heater up there creating holes. Ryan Tetrick was up there, too, on that. I mean, there's some big dudes blocking the way for Davis. And as soon as he got about an 11-yard gain, nobody was there, and he turned on the jets, and nobody could catch him. There was nobody around for like 20 yards. It was insane.
You let Christian Davis hit the corner, he's gone.
Oh, my gosh. He was good on defense, too. He had some big tackles on defense, like hard tackles. Like the dude
he's going to be the guy next year.
They tried to do a couple of screens. PV tried to do a couple of screens, and Davis saw it coming. And I bet you if it was a half a second, later than it was, it would have been a pick 6 immediately. He came in.
I'm going to go out here. I'm going to offer up a couple more. Jamel Jenkins, a fit, 300 yards, big game for him, 7 touchdowns. Vinny Ballone, 7 touchdowns for him, only 3 incompletions. I mean, the fact that he, again, had more touchdowns than incompletions, and he only had 3 incompletions is insane for his performance. To have just 13 receptions over 300 yards is great. I'm going Phillips Bradley as well, Valley Christian. 3 touchdowns for him, 2 on the ground, 1 through the air. He had 2 rushing attempts. Each went for touchdowns over 40 yards. So great performance there. And then at more of a national level, Matt, Christian McCaffrey, passing touchdown, receiving touchdown, and a rushing touchdown.
I was thinking about that too. I was trying to keep we'll go a little local, but I mean, yeah. And I mean, how about those Cleveland Cavaliers too?
Yeah, them as well. But Matt, from our game, JTT, Tuimoloau was phenomenal. Yeah. Put on maybe the best defensive performance in Ohio State's history with that game against Penn State. And Matt, at this point, great defensive ends having great games against Penn State for Ohio State just seems to be tradition for the Buckeyes at this point. Yeah. Defensive ends wins games in that matchup. And I think that's why Penn State has struggled. They haven't had that premier edge rusher in a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah. But that's going to do it here for the Monday edition of the show. Mike Wolfgang will join us tomorrow. Power Hour coming up next on Your Sports Network. I'm Alec. That's Matt. This has been Casual Sports Podcast. Playoff breakdowns. More to come tomorrow on Your Sports Network.